Hey everyone, Caleb with the Antique Book Collective, and today I'm getting to you guys with sort of an emergency update for economic stuff. But guys, it's not saying that the world's ending right now. It's not saying the sky is falling, right now. It's just saying that there's enough things going on right now that I think I really need to make one right now. I was thinking about pushing this off a little bit, but I really want to prioritize it right now. So that's why this video is dropping a little bit later than it should be dropping for today. And with that said, though, I just want to dive right on into things. So I'm not going to give you guys a agenda of what I'm going to go over just yet, but I will be going over everything chronologically for what I think you guys need to hear. So first things first. So I'm just going to say, guys, for the economic crisis we're getting into, we have only seen the first salvo of it, and that happened, honestly, there were some things that were going bad beforehand, but the first salvo that a lot of us that aren't following economic stuff saw was the bank failures at the beginning of this year, 2023. And guys, I have a chart here that I did on a whiteboard, so I'll be able to mark things up for you guys as I go along, but that was just the first salvo that a lot of people saw. There was some stuff going on before that, actually a lot of stuff, whole lot of stuff, but this is sort of what a lot of us saw, and it's fallen off the headlines, but it doesn't mean that the issue is over whatsoever. I mean, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, there's something called a black swan. A black swan is an unforeseen issue that people don't see coming. Now, it doesn't say that no one saw it coming. There are a lot of things that people are like, well, sir, I actually did see this coming. And everyone says after the fact, oh, I saw it coming, but there's a lot of people that actually did say it, but they never got the headlines. The banks, the failures of the banks, that could be a black swan that we will see potentially again because no one's talking about it anymore, so no one's preparing for it. And because no one's preparing for it, it's those things you don't prepare for that generally hit you the hardest, hit you the worst. It completely blindsides you. It's like being tackled from behind. No, you didn't see it coming at all. So with that said, though, guys, here's a chart. So as you guys can see, it's the Federal Reserve Bank balance sheet. Sounds really boring. Bear with me. So this is 2020. This all happened. This was half the money printing in all of American history. All right here, the banks just printed all the money. Well, Federal Reserve Bank, sorry. And the U.S. government, all that, printed half the money. That's why we have all the inflation we have now. I have some more stuff on inflation later on, but that's just that right there. As you can see, during all the lockdowns, we continued borrowing money, printing money, all that sort of stuff. So the Federal Reserve balance sheet continued growing. This balance sheet growth isn't just because they were printing money, not at all. That was sort of a separate thing. It's not all going on to be on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, This is just the stuff that they own. Them printing money, that goes into something called M2, told a different chart. This is just a rough reflection of things. But with that said, this is all, let's just say, ancient history. This is what we are looking at here. This is where the Federal Reserve guys started increasing all the rates for borrowing money. This means that all those mortgage rates that you guys were doing, instead of being the 3%, it's now 7%. Some people are seeing 8%. Some people are seeing a whole lot more, depending on how bad your credit score is. And then this little bump up right here, guys, that is right at the bottom there, is right where the first salvo of banks started collapsing, started failing, all that sort of stuff. And back then, I actually told my family, I'm like, okay, guys, so they just gave the banks a boatload of money. Like this guy's right here, it doesn't look like a lot compared to all of this crazy growth, but that is a ton of money that they just put back out into the system. So the Federal Reserve let a bunch of banks basically borrow money. It wasn't quite like that. It's sort of convoluted, but basically they're like, hey, so we see you guys are in issues, in a big problem. You have a lot of issues right now. Here's a boatload of money. We'll take all these things as sort of a lien. Think of them as a pawn shop. They're like, yeah, we'll let you pawn these things for now. You'll get them back potentially. Depends on what exact thing they're going for on that. That was an entire thing called the, brain fart. What was it called? The bank lending program, BFP, short-term lending? I don't remember. Sorry, guys. A lot of things I was doing to get this video sort of ready, so I forgot that. But that all happened right there. But I told my family, guys, as soon as we get back down to this level right here, where the first bank failures hit, and then we got back to it, I was telling my family, guys, as soon as we get back to that mark, we're going to start seeing some big issues again. And right around when we hit that mark, we actually saw another bank fail. That was the one in Kansas that I told you guys about a few months ago. And since then, we've actually dropped a whole lot lower than that. So there are a whole lot more issues coming. And in fact, if you guys don't believe me that there are more issues coming down the line on the banking side of things, guys, I recommend you open your stinking eyes and actually start doing some research on these things. If you believe banks are infallible and will never fail again, just check out some of the big issues that a lot of banks are having. I mean, that other bank failure I told you guys about was just the Kansas one, but another bank that we saw fail that didn't officially fail because the government swooped in and was like, hey, instead of failing, we're going to actually have you get bought out by another bank. Congratulations, you're now a new bank. Ha ha ha. The government does that a lot just to make sure that there's not a panic. It's a good thing. It's a good strategy. It does make it so there's no panic. However, it doesn't really negate the actual facts of the matter. So with that said, though, guys, that other bank that we saw fail, I believe that one was First Republic. I don't remember off the top of my head. There's just been so much craziness going on right now, but we are at quite a few failed banks, not just in the U.S. for this year. One of the biggest banks in the world, actually, Credit Suisse, if you guys heard anything about that one basically failed also, but their government actually stepped in and forced them to be bought out by another bank. And guys, I think I shared this one already, but that other bank that bought out, quote unquote bought out, Credit Suisse, they actually unloaded basically all the employees, most of the assets, all that sort of stuff. They've been selling off, cutting, getting rid of all these things. So long story short, Credit Suisse is basically dead because the company that took it over is like, yeah, we didn't want it in the first place, and it's a terrible company now because it's just been Credit Suisse, guys. It got hit really bad in 2008, that whole crisis, and it just never really fully recovered. So the bank that took it over, they were like, yeah, my hands are clean of it. Toodaloo. We sold it off. We burned everything. Goodbye. So it's not saying that they got rid of everything, but they did get rid of a ton of assets and a ton of employees with that one. With all that said, though, guys, back to what I was mentioning earlier about you need to do some research. There are quite a few, even large banks, that are having some huge issues right now. So, for instance, Bank of America, we've all heard of that one. They have over $100 billion of losses on their paper losses. So guys, that doesn't mean that they necessarily don't have that money, because this is sort of like your stocks that you're selling off, or buying up, depending on what you want to do. If you buy a stock for $1 and it goes down to 80 cents, did you lose 20 cents there? Yes, but also no, you lose the money if you sell. So for that, it's an unrealized loss. You don't have to report it on taxes or anything like that. You report that stuff when you sell your stuff. Unless there's some funky tax rules. There are a lot of funky tax rules for a lot of things, but just for us with our normal taxes that we file, let's just deal with that. But with that said, Bank of America, that over $100 billion of loss, that is all just paper losses, so it doesn't say that they are going to die just yet, but it is a big red flag. The reason why we are seeing so many big paper losses on so many banks is because of the bonds, the bond market, all that sort of stuff. We have actually seen the worst, I want to say it's almost 3 years in the bond market of history, and guys, we started seeing called a bull market. So a bull market, guys. So let me just draw this out for you. Clean off this chart really quick. And it's probably not going to get totally clean, but we'll have to live with that. So guys, a bull market. So here's a little chart. A bull market is the ones that go like this, upwards. So we've seen a bull market in the bond market. So actually, let me make that a little thicker for you guys, just to make sure you can see it. So we've seen a bull market in the bond market for about since 1980, and it sort of started petering out and dying in 2020, 2019, somewhere in there, and we've started seeing it sort of roll over, and we've actually seen some of the worst years for the bond market, not just since the 80s, but some of them since history of the bond market, like first started being recorded in the United States. And of course, the United States is not the oldest country in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but it is old enough. So guys, this rollover that we're seeing, and again, this is a very rough chart of what we sort of are seeing, but it's a big red flag because people in the investing world, you started in 1980, and I know the 8 I drew for you guys was absolutely terrible, but if you started back then, right now, actually, let's just do some fast numbers for you. So let's say you're like a normal kid, you get out of college in 1980. That was a long time ago. That was like 60 years. So let's just be sure. 2023 minus 1980. Wow, that was 43 years ago. I can't math right now. But 43 years ago, guys. Now where the 60 comes in. You probably started, if you were doing that, you probably started when you were about 20, so you would be 60 there. You'd be 60 now. Sorry, that's where I got the 60. If you're 60 right now, you're getting ready to retire. And if you guys apply some thought to that, that means basically everyone in the trading markets right now, everyone who's been investing in bonds right now, those people have always only seen an upwards market. Everyone is only prepared for the market to continue going upwards. We're seeing a lot of the same stuff in the stock markets actually today, guys. Most of the kids that are actually investing today, they've only seen, so instead of this chart, let's just erase those 2 years. It's basically the exact same thing, though. Let's just say 2012 was about the bottom of the 2008 crisis, and then actually, let's adapt this chart a little bit more to actually be what we've seen. So 2012 is there, 2023 is now. And so we saw this, and then it shot up a ton in the lockdowns, but now it's just sort of petering out, and I know there's a bump right here, and there's a bump right here, but it's basically petering out pretty hard, guys. And the problem is, most of the kids investing today, they've only seen this crazy run-up in the markets. They don't know what to do with the downwards in the markets. And that's sort of the issue, guys, with a lot of the investing world today, is there are a lot of people who are like, it only goes up, because that is their experience. However, people are not studying history. It's a big red flag, because when you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. And guys, I know it sounds like, well, if everyone just thinks the markets are going to keep on going up, it'll only go up. It's great. Well, that's sort of the thing. Eventually, you run out of the next idiot to sell something to, or you run out of just money in general, and there's not enough money to go around. Because, guys, let's face it. You think a stock market's going to go up, you put all of your money into that, all your spare money. And then you think, oh, it's going to keep on going up, so you mortgage your house, and then you mortgage your car, or whatever you would do for that. I don't even know if you could do that with the car. I don't do anything with that. But you put everything you can into that. And let's say all the neighborhood around you does that, all the city around you, all the nation around you. Eventually, there's nothing left to try to put out to the pawn shop and try to get some free money so you can put it more into the stocks because you think it's going to keep on going up. Eventually, you run out of money to keep going. And when that happens, things are priced at the margin. And guys, bear with me right here. So let's say I have a calculator right here. Oh, I actually do. Let's say that these calculators are normally worth $25. They're actually worth a lot more, but let's say it's normally worth $25 on the used market. So there's 1,000,005 people selling them for about $25. I mean, we all sell stuff on eBay. We know that there's roughly an average of what something sells at. If 5 people go out and start selling these things for $3, what's the entire market on eBay going to do for these calculators? Are the calculators still going to be still going to be $25, or are they going to drop a little closer to $3 to try to compete with the people selling them for $3? I mean, yeah, those 3 calculators, they will sell out pretty fast. Potentially no one will come back and replace it, but there might be some people who see that, get a little bit nervous, and actually sell out their calculator because they think their calculator is not going to be worth anything next year because it goes from $25 to $3. Who's to say it's not going to be worth 0 next year, you know? I want to get my $3 if I can get my $3, you know? So that's sort of what we see in a lot of things. That's what we see in the stock market. That's what we see in the housing market. All these different markets, guys. You see a rush towards the door. Everyone wants to get out of the building because they think the building's going to burn down. That's when I've actually heard this quite a few times from, from one of the channels that I follow, one of the channels that I recommend on my channel for you guys to follow for economic advice and whatnot. And that thing is they actually talk about something called money heaven. And guys, there's an entire saying of, oh, money never disappears, it just changes hands. Yes, that is true when we are dealing with money, like actual silver. And guys, these are just 40% silver right here, but it still is silver. This is what we see when money changes hands. It's actual physical money. What we are dealing with today, what we call money, is actually just currency. So as JP Morgan said back in the day, gold and silver are money. Everything else is credit. Credit, guys, that is when you start getting, I'm going to call it some spicy economics going on. Guys, when you get credit going on, you have something, and this is what the other YouTube channel I was mentioning earlier, they call it money heaven. And that's when you have, let's say you have $1 million in your house, and you're like, yeah, I paid $1 million for this. Oh, what was it worth in 2008? Oh, the last guy that I bought it from said he bought it for 80 grand. Wow, it went up that much in just 10 years, a little over 10 years. Wow, that is incredible. That's a great investment for that guy. Good thing you got it at $1 million though, because it's going to keep on going up. Plot twist. What if it doesn't? And if it doesn't keep going up, guys, that person who paid $1 million for their home, if that home goes from $1 million valuation and then the neighbor down the street sells their home for $200,000 because the crisis starts hitting, that $800,000 in between the million and the 200, it doesn't just like change hands and some backroom banker gets it. Well, technically you did if the guy bought the house, but bear with me. That money doesn't just change hands, you know. It actually just vanishes altogether, because when you're dealing with such a credit-heavy economy like we are seeing right now, instead of having it so it just gently goes, oh, so I paid this much for this. Oh, I lost my money. Oh, so I only have 2 left. This other guy got this much. With credit, it's like, oh, it's only worth this much, and then it's not. It doesn't go to anyone else. It's gone. And we see that with stocks. We see that with housing, as I already mentioned. It's really something to be very concerned about. It's a very dangerous thing, guys. With that said, though, that's just sort of what we're seeing now. got the stock market, got the bond market, all that sort of stuff. It's not very good. For me, guys, I personally have really battened down the hatches a whole lot. There are some things that I still am sort of speculating on, but very strong speculation is done with my own research, all that sort of stuff. I recommend you guys do the same. Actually, later on in this video, I might be covering something that I would recommend for you guys. Of course, it's not a financial recommendation. Do your own due diligence, do your own financial advice, find your own financial advisor, all that sort of stuff, all the stuff you have to say. But that's just something I would personally advise people to do that are my friends, and it's something that I'm actually doing myself, which is why I actually share these things, is because these are things that I'm doing myself. With that said, though, onto the bank failure thing. Guys, back in September of last year is actually when I closed out a bank account with one particular bank where I had most of my savings, and I actually pulled out a ton of money from my other bank that I was doing business with. I'm still doing business with that particular bank just because I need to for business, but besides that, I basically pulled out. With that said, though, guys, on to the next thing. So if you guys want to do some research on what's going on, I actually have a video that I would recommend you guys watch. That video is right here. That one I'm also going to link to the end up there as well, but that is a very good video that sort of summarized a lot of things. It might be a little high level for some folks, but it is something that I would recommend you guys check out, just to be sure that you know what's going on, just to be sure that you are prepared for what's going on, because guys, there is a lot happening that you do not hear about. There are hundreds of millions of jobs that the government has said, oh, we've created all these new jobs. I'm the best person ever that's ever been elected to this particular position. Oh, I'm so amazing. I have blessed this country. The other guy was terrible. There's been hundreds of millions of jobs that they said were created that were not created. And interestingly enough, guys, so I'm making another chart for you. So let's say they have created this many jobs. It's more like this, and those created jobs are just jobs that people are getting back from when they were fired because of lockdowns, because governments are absolutely terrible and ruined everything. But with that said, we're seeing huge disparities, and generally throughout history, so here's another chart. Throughout history, we see, let's say this is the chart of jobs. We see, oh, here's what they said, and then, oh, they understated it this time, overstated it this time, oh, and it's all over the board. But it's within a margin of error. This time around, though, guys, with this particular administration, all that sort of stuff, it has only been to the upside. And there, you guys can say it's a conspiracy, which it actually is a conspiracy, not a conspiracy theory. It's an actual conspiracy. And yeah, you could say part of it's a theory as well. But there are actual facts of this, and the people making these particular charts are all usually of just one political affiliation, which is the same political affiliation, that is currently in power. They are going to lie to make that person seem like they're doing better than they normally do. That is something that we see all the time. I'm not saying it's worse this time than usual, even though I sort of do think it is, because it sort of is according to the data. You guys can do your own research, but you can definitely see that there are some big issues going on. There are some big disparities in the facts, and they are trying to basically lie to everyone to make sure that everyone thinks that things are going better than they are, just for the sake of trying to save face. But problem is, when you lie only to the upside, when you try to tell someone that their house is going to keep on going up and up and up and up, and it's amazing, it's the best thing ever, when you keep doing that, eventually reality sets in, and instead of going up this final leg, here's the actual breaking point, and you go down that much. When you keep lying to people, they do not prepare. So guys, let's just think about this from like a food standpoint, because we all understand food. Let's say that everyone tells you, oh, the grocery stores are going to start cutting their prices. I know we've all seen inflation in prices. I think it's something like 25% just since lockdowns began, I think is the number I heard. But let's say everyone says, oh, it's going to go down another 20%. Instead of going up 25, it's going to go down 20 next week. Are you guys going to buy some food right now, or are you going to wait till next week because you heard some guy on the internet or some guy on mainstream media tell you it was going to happen? You're going to wait. 99% of us are going to wait. Even if you have your pantries running out a little bit, you're going to wait because you heard a guy and he said he was an expert, and the people on the TV said he was an expert. Well, next week rolls around, instead of going down 20%, these things actually hiked up another 5%, hiked up another 25%. We don't really know, but because you didn't prepare for that, you actually end up having to pay a whole lot more money for this. Or potentially, guys, we all saw this during lockdowns, you run out of toilet paper, or you run out of canned beans, or whatever the thing they run out of. Because everyone else saw the prices go up, they're like, oh no, it's going to keep on going up. So everyone goes out, buys everything, and by the time you show up, there might not be enough food left for you. And if you already had an empty pantry, you're all of a sudden like, oh poo, I'm out of food. I'm going to go to the other grocery store. Oh, that one's out too. Okay, I'll go to a McDonald's. Oh, that's interesting. McDonald's ran out of these 5 items. Oh no. And then you sort of realize that you did mess up. And that's sort of the issue, guys. When people start lying to you, when people start convoluting the truth, or you just have idiots in charge that are trying to make something look the way that they think it is, even though it isn't, when you have that sort of start happening, people start reacting in ways that should happen if those facts that the people were saying were actually factual. It'll work if they do it that way, but the problem is those facts are no longer factual with what we are actually seeing today, because remember, they are overstating these things by hundreds of thousands of jobs, guys. Hundreds of thousands. That is not a small margin of error. I mean, that is like explicitly messing things up for the sake of saving face, for the sake of making things look better. And I did not actually see the speech myself. I've just heard about the speech, but Biden, the president, actually gave a speech, I guess, something like last week or the week before. I can't remember for sure. Don't really care. But evidently in that speech, according to some of the people that I heard, and yes, I'm referring to an expert that I don't actually know is an expert, and I don't know their facts. Oh no! But guys, according to several people that I've heard, though, they actually said that Biden, in a speech, said, "Hey, so this is probably the best job numbers we'll see for a little bit. It might actually start going down or start being weaker." When you have people start saying things will get weaker, that generally means things have already broken and it's getting bad. And since we already have a ton of data where it's been like, oh, it's so good, it's so amazing, da-da-da-da-da, but it actually isn't, you know that things are getting really, really bad. And guys, a lot of the job numbers that we've actually been seeing, so again, I'm going to make this chart for you once again of what they say the jobs are doing. So let's say the jobs are this, according to them. So what we are actually seeing is something that's actually sort of terrifying. So here's the job numbers that they say. So let's say that this is the part-time and let's say, is it just part-time? Yeah, I guess it's just part-time. So those are the part-time jobs. These are the full-time jobs, let's say, and that's really falling off a cliff in a really bad way. And you guys might think, oh, well, it's part-time jobs. At least more people are getting hired. Problem is, most of those part-time jobs that we're seeing, guys, are not being held by, oh, Johnny down the road got another job. He just turned 15. Good for him. Oh, and this other kid got one. That's not what we're seeing, guys, whatsoever. These people that we see getting fired from full-time jobs or potentially getting their hours cut so they just become part-time, these people are actually getting multiple jobs. And guys, when you see multiple people, if you see one person getting multiple jobs, that's a big issue, guys. We do not normally see one person having to get 15 different jobs to try to make ends meet. When you have an actual good economy, someone can get one job and make a full wage, a full lifetime worth of money from just one job for the rest of their life. When you start having big issues is when you have to be like, oh man, they just cut my hours at the factory. I need to get a job at McDonald's, at this. Then I'm like, oh, I can't make it with this much because of inflation. I have to do this, this, and this. That is something that we're seeing in a big way, guys, right now, is a lot of these people who were making ends meet or were barely making ends meet earlier on, their hours have been cut, inflation has happened, a bunch of other things, guys, and we are actually seeing a lot of people having to get multiple jobs. It's not good. What's so stinking ever? So that is a big, big red flag. With that said, though, guys, that's all one thing. On to the next thing, real estate. So real estate, guys, I already mentioned this in an earlier video where I went over the commercial real estate market. Things are rolling over in a really bad way for commercial real estate. However, I think I mentioned this in that video, but I'm going to say it in this one as well. It's not just commercial real estate being hit. We are seeing residential real estate, so that means your home. We're seeing that get hit in a really, really bad way as well. And also apartments, which is what a lot of people live in, just one or two last I... Oh, no, definitely more than one or two. Guys, a lot of people live in apartments, and those are also getting hammered in a big, big way. Of course, that is for the landlords of the apartments, but... that is just another symptom of the disease in the real estate market that we're seeing right now, guys. So with that said, the real estate market, so depending on what part of the country you live in, depending on what city you live in, you will see different things. However, there are a lot of places that are seeing not just like, 1 or 2% declines in prices. We're seeing places that are seeing double digits, and in some cases, strong double-digit declines in things. So guys, double digit means like 10 or more, and actually more like 10 to 99. Somewhere in there, that's all double digits. So guys, I don't recall off the top of my head what the largest declines we've seen so far are, but it definitely is over 20% declines in single markets for just, I believe, just this year. Those are insanely large declines, guys. So back to the $1 million house example that I mentioned earlier, it's not going to be 200,000 that it goes to, but 20% decline, that gets you down to 800,000. $1 million down to $800,000. That means you've lost $200,000. Remember, guys, what I mentioned about money heaven? That all went to money heaven. That's gone now. And it's not just gone for you. Your entire neighborhood, let's say of 100 houses of $1 million, they all lost 20% right off the top. All of them. That really snowballs, guys. That really becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And yeah, I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, oh, but no one's going to sell their house if it dropped that much. Well, there are people that get into a bind and have to sell their house. There are deaths that happen. There are divorces, unfortunately, that happen. There are lots of reasons why people sell houses. Let's say they lost their full-time job. Remember what I said here. And now they have to actually downsize to a smaller home. That is stuff that we see all the time. And when that happens, your house that was $1 million and went down 20%, if your neighborhood starts selling out, it'll drop another 20 or 50 or maybe even 5. But regardless, it's a good amount of money. You are losing a lot of money when that happens, when people panic. It's not very good at all. With all that said, though, guys, remember what I said already about how it sort of depends on where you live. So the places where a lot of people fled from psycho cities and states during the lockdowns, a lot of those places where people fled for the sake of actually living their lives, those places are actually seeing some of the worst declines in housing because everyone's starting to sell their second homes there as they get forced to get sent back to the office. The California guys, for example, they've actually given a lot of ultimatums to their employees of, hey, come back to the office or you're canned. And I'm not saying those companies are necessarily in the wrong for that because, let's face it, you actually need to be in the office to get work done sometimes. But that is something we're seeing a whole lot. So that is one of the reasons why we are seeing a lot of the lockdown boomtown economies, such as Boise, a lot of the places in Florida, a lot of the places in Tennessee where a lot of people fled. We're seeing a lot of those get hit really, really bad. So with that said, though, guys, that is something to keep in mind. Again, you might not be seeing it just yet, but the problem with the housing markets in the country, they all trend one direction usually, but then when the crash starts happening, or even when the boom starts happening, you see it sort of fork off, and instead of going, oh, they're all going up in a channel, it's like, oh, one's going off in a big way, one's going down in a big way, and the other few are going sort of the same way. You see that at the bottom, and then you see that at the top as well, where things start going like, ooh, or woo, or really bad. So it really depends, guys, again, on where you live, that sort of market, but it doesn't mean that you're going to continue seeing it fork off like that. If we've seen anything throughout history, it will have the fork off, and then the gravity of this either starts pulling everything down, or the force of this one going upwards starts pulling everything back upwards. But according to all the other data, the guys, that we are seeing right now, the odds of it all being pulled upwards is basically zero. If you actually follow the data, or if you want to follow the experts on TV, it's 100%, guys. We're going up. We are doing amazing. Best economy ever. I know that you guys probably lost your job, but it's great. Trust me, it's great. I'm on TV. That's sort of what you're seeing right now, guys. You see sort of this cognitive dissonance of, oh yeah, it's great, da, 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 da. And meanwhile, the bombs are falling around you. It's mostly a peaceful protest, you know. So with that said, though, guys, on to the next thing. So we just established real estate. On to the next thing, which I think is great. Just great. Oh, wait, no, this is more bad news. The sky is still falling, but it's not falling right now. So with that said, guys, yet another whiteboard chart for you. I know, it's wonderful. So something that we see historically, guys, with inflation crises, and this is not saying it happens every single time, but it happens quite often. So we see, let's just say this is normal baseline inflation, which is about 2%. Why is it 2%? So the reason why it's 2%, according to the research that I've done, the data that I've heard, is because New Zealand, a very, very, very large country that just dominates the world, it doesn't. According to New Zealand, that is the natural inflation rate for their country, because that is roughly how much they saw the amount of gold increase in their country. And New Zealand does have some gold mining in their country, so that's sort of where they got it. But let's just say 2%, and I know this is a flat bottom of the chart right here. Just bear with me. That's just the baseline that the governments shoot for. It's fine. Deal with it. But a lot of people have issue with the 2%. They think it should be 0%, because if it is a 0% inflation rate, we as the American citizens, or even worldwide citizens, we actually end up making out in a big, big way. No, our houses do not increase at such rapid rates. However, everything else is stable, and actually we see a lot of price declines. So, for example, different chart really quick, guys. For example, something that you see when you have no inflation or really low inflation is you actually see prices for stuff actually decline, because in capitalism, one of the wonders of capitalism is the fact that, let's say, a flat screen TV cost you $5,000 back in the day. Today you can buy it for $100, because the technology has gotten so much better. It can be so much cheaper to make it. So it goes from this crazy high price down to something that you're actually like, oh, let me buy one for my room now. I can actually afford that. Of course, it was not $5,000 a few years ago, but just bear with me for that. It wasn't too far off from that. It's crazy how much TVs have declined in value just because they have gotten so good at making them. But with that said, back to our chart right here. 2% is what the governments shoot for. It used to be 2% as the ceiling, and now they say, some places say, oh, we shoot for an average of it, or we just shoot for it in general, which means, oh, I can do it in a channel. Or in the case of what we just had in the United States not too long ago, they say we shoot for it as sort of an average, which means we can go really, really high sometimes, and then we just need to keep it down here, and it'll average out to about 2%. Whatever, it's fine. Sure, you got murdered that one year that it shot up, but whatever. But guys, with all that said, back to the initial example, what I was really trying to go after with this of inflation is coming back in a big way for us. So here's what we historically see, guys, with inflation during inflation crises. So we see it go from the baseline, and it might go up a little bit, but then you actually see a spike, and then it'll round off, and then it'll actually taper. So guys, this is the inflation everyone whines about, but this right here, this is not you getting your money back, because you're still well above the 2% rate right here. You're still seeing increases in inflation, which means you're still seeing increases in the prices that you pay for a glass of milk. So yeah, it's going down. It's great. You're very happy. This is not called disinflation. Disinflation is when we actually get down below like 0% in your car. Instead of buying a car for 50 grand, you're actually paying 40 grand for a car. So you, people who actually save money, you actually make out in a big way because you are actually making some more money. You are very, very happy because you are able to do more with your money. But this right here, this is just called disinflation. It's still inflating your prices, but it's just at a lower rate than this. With that said, though, this is what we historically see happen during inflation crises. However, I don't know of a single example where you only see one inflation spike, because most of the examples you actually see it climb back up, and the second peak is actually usually a little bit higher than the first peak, and then it usually rolls back down. Sometimes you actually see 3 peaks in these things. I believe the 70s was one that we saw 3 peaks of inflation, and this one right here, this chart is only 2 peaks. I don't know for sure if it's going to be a 2-peak time or a 3-peak time of inflation going up, but end of the day is we are currently maybe around here at this base. So actually, let me get the pen back out. So the past couple inflation readings, I want to say 3, we've actually seen it start to increase again. And of course, it's not a straight up increase for us right now. The increase we're seeing is a little more, it's a little bit more like this, where it's just slowly rolling back up, but we are definitely seeing some inflation increases right now, according to the government data. Of course, there are a lot of people who have issue with the government data, myself included, because let's just look at the facts here. Things are not going up according to how much the government says they are. The reason for that is they're sort of obliged to lie on this data, guys. I know it sounds crazy. Oh, the government would never lie to us. If you believe that, I'm sorry. But the issue is these inflation numbers, guys, they were actually created back in the 70s initially. And that was for the sake of, oh, we're going to use this so we know how much to pay the pensioners, the retirement people for Social Security when inflation happens. Because it's bound to happen. It's just the status quo. It's fine. Inflation happens. Here's some data to say how much we should pay you some more. So, guys, let's think about it from the point of view of someone who owes someone money. I can choose to pay them however much I want to pay them, basically, is what you sort of are dealing with right here. Because, bear with me, let's say the actual inflation rate is 15%. That means the government would have to pay 15% more than what they're paying at that particular year to all the Social Security people who have already paid in, who have depended on that to make sure that they don't die when they get old. However, if I'm the government, I want to save that money, because the government, being the government, decided, you know what, this is a lot of money sitting in a bank account that we promised to people, but what if we spent it instead? Because that's great, and that is what we actually have seen, guys. The government has actually spent away a ton of that money because they're so trustworthy. With that said, though, instead of being 15%, you could be the government and you're like, you know what, let's make a data series to be like, instead of paying 15%, we can tell them how much inflation there is, so they expect to only get that much of an increase. If we lie to them outright, if we do the most bald-faced lie, they'll believe it because we're the government. We never lie. So instead of being 15%, you say, oh, inflation, guys, it's 4%. It's great. So we'll just increase your Social Security 4%. It's great. And guys, that's the entire CPI thing that we see. A lot of people actually call it the CP lie. And they see that a lot of the times where inflation is actually here, but the government's saying it's down here, so they don't have to pay as much. And one of the ways that they really cheat the system to really make out that they don't have to pay as much is 3 things. First one, they cut out food, which I think we need food to live. I don't know. They also cut out oil, which is energy, just energy in general, but let's just say oil. They cut out that as well out of this whole thing, so you don't have to use oil to survive, obviously. I mean, I don't need any oil to get to my job. And then they also sort of fiddled with housing to the point that they basically cut it out. Guys, they make it so now they call up random people, completely random people, and like, hey, so we see you have a house. What would you rent your house for right now? And 99.9% of people, guys, they have no idea what their house should be renting for anyways. They don't know what their neighbor's renting the house for down the street, so they throw out a number. A lot of these people, guys, most likely have their houses paid off because they're probably just calling old people who are actually at home answering the phone. And they go out and they get their data off those 3 things, and that really, 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 really skews the data in a really bad way to go a lot lower than what it should be. Potentially, guys, you are seeing 15% inflation right now, and it actually, according to the government, is only 4, but it's actually 15, but they're saying it's 4 just because with all the crazy things they've done to skew the data in a bad way. If you guys want to see some stuff that is actually accurate to the data that they said were the metrics back in the, I think, 1980s, I can't remember for sure, there's actually a site called Shadow Stats. You guys can check that out. That is closer to the true inflation that we're seeing. Most of the time it's about double what the government says it is, just because this actual closer to true inflation thing goes off of more accurate data that is not doctored every single year to make it look better for the government than it actually is. I know that's all I was going to say shady, but there we go. I know it sounds all conspiracy theory-esque, but it actually is factual things that are actually happening. So it is a conspiracy, but a conspiracy, guys, is when a whole lot of people work together for a particular goal, usually a shady one in this case, but that's what an actual conspiracy is. Conspiracy theories when you say people are doing that, but this is stuff we're actually seeing, we actually have data for, so that's that. But with that said, though, guys, I have heard from a lot of experts, I've studied history myself, all that sort of stuff. We are seeing an increase again in inflation. Is it going to be a whole lot higher of inflation than what we already have seen? Potentially, potentially not. Usually, according to the people that I've heard do research on this, the second wave is usually worse than the first wave. Sometimes the third wave is even worse than that. Let's hope we don't get a third wave, but potentially we could. Sometimes you have depressions, recessions, all that hit in, and you actually get down to the below 0% inflation rate, which actually means you see prices decline. Price decline is very good for us. It means our dollar goes a whole lot further. However, you also see some people get their wages cut, or they get fired, or that sort of stuff, because the dollar is worth more, and a whole lot of things. But long story short, you might see some people lose their jobs, which means it's not as good for them, and especially in recessions, depressions, all that sort of stuff, you see people losing their jobs, and that's one of the reasons why inflation might dip below the 0%. But with that said, you don't always see inflation go below 0% during these recessions, depressions, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes you see something called an inflationary depression or recession, and that's stuff where you get more like Weimar Germany, all that sort of stuff, the 70s. These are inflationary depressions. People also call it stagflation. They're sort of different animals, but sort of similar animals. Basically, inflation's going through the roof, and it's a race. It's a rat race to try to stay alive as everything just goes crazy. With all that said, though, on to the next thing. Totally separate line right now, guys. So with all this wonderful financial news, things are great. It's absolutely wonderful. We're seeing boom times. That's all sarcasm right there, guys. It's not great. But let's just say it's great. Everyone's doing great. So the government, being the government's like, you know what? Since everyone's doing so well, we need to make sure that the people that are on top right now get taken back a notch so everyone else has a chance. Because why should we protect businesses if everything's going good? We should attack our biggest businesses in America. So, as such, the government is like, okay, right now we're going to go after Amazon for being a monopoly, and we're going to go after eBay for selling a whole bunch of bad things. So, guys, the reason why I'm sharing only these two is because these two are things that actually impact us as eBay, well, not just eBay, but book resellers, thing resellers in general. So, for me, I'm only on eBay. So, I'm not too worried about the Amazon side of things because I don't sell my books on Amazon. I do sell some other things on Amazon, including my books, but not my antique books, but the books I write. I've shared that with you guys before. But with that said, let's just focus on eBay first off. So eBay, guys, so we all know you can post whatever you want on eBay. eBay does have some things that they might throw a little stink for, like be like, oh, you can't sell that, sorry, pal. But there are a lot of ways you can get around selling a lot of these things on eBay. A lot of people have found a lot of loopholes, and the government, being the wonderful government's like, you know what, we know everything, so eBay, we saw that you sold a whole lot of these particular things and these particular things, and we just know for a fact that you could have stopped this. So we are actually looking at finding you, I believe it's several $100 billion. I can't remember off the top of my head. I could pull it up. Actually, I will pull it up for you guys, just for the sake of accuracy. But the government is now looking at fining eBay a boatload of money. So guys, I don't care what you think about if eBay's guilty or not. Court of law has to figure that one out right now, but let's just say what you think. It doesn't matter what you think. Let's just say that right now. Fact of the matter is the government's going after eBay. So here are the facts of what that means for us. And as I talk, let me just talk about, look up this. So as we talk about the whole eBay thing, let's just sort of think about what that means for us. If eBay is being fined a boatload of money, let's think. eBay's losing money. We're making money on eBay. eBay has the power to charge us more money if we are trying to make money. So guys, there's a very good chance that eBay will be increasing our fee schedules. Amazon possibly will as well in the near future because of the things the governments are going after on both of them. And forgive me as I'm trying to take a little while to do this because I'm trying to think of how to word this particular thing for my emissions. Let's go do that. With that said, though, I would not be surprised, if either of these corporations decided to start charging us higher fees because they are being attacked basically by the government. And okay, right here I have the actual article from CBS News right there. Hope that focuses. But eBay is being fined as much as $2 billion. So sorry, not 200 billion, $2 billion for allegedly allowing distribution of sales of And then CNBC is talking about it. Reuters is talking about it. So a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of big companies. You guys can look those up yourself. But with that said, $2 billion. That is a big chunk out of eBay. It'd be one thing if they were doing that out of Amazon, because Amazon's a whole lot bigger. eBay, that is a pretty big chunk. So I would not be surprised if we actually see potentially eBay cut back on some of the bonuses they give us as sellers. And by bonuses, I don't mean they're paying us out money, but like some of the things they do to make our lives a little bit extra. I wouldn't be surprised if they either stop or slow down on doing that, or if they increase our fee schedules, or potentially a few other things that basically end up hurting us as sellers. I mean, I know they already are charging us sales fees on shipping because, we totally get to pocket that. So why not charge us for shipping? Oh, wait, no, I don't. That's money I never get to see. Yay. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they do find some other things beyond that to just sort of be an extra middle finger towards us, even though that's not what it really is, but it sort of basically feels like that. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing stuff like that, though, guys, with eBay potentially being fined for that. If nothing else, eBay is going to have to spend a lot of money with lawyers, which, again, might hurt us. And, guys, I know I mentioned already that we are rolling over into a recession, depression, whatever might happen. Things are not good in the economy, so potentially eBay could have decided to be like, oh, the economy's not doing as good, we don't have as many expenses right now, What if we started cutting some of these fees for our sellers? What if we started making it easier for people to do business? That's something that they could have done in this coming recession, but because the government's going after them, potentially they won't be doing that now. So that is something that you might see on the eBay side of things. With that said, onto Amazon. I know a lot of us are Amazon sellers, resellers, all that sort of stuff. Well, guys, Amazon, being a large company, already has a lot of lawyer stuff going on. As a lot of people get mad at Amazon for everything under the sun, it's great. But that's sort of built in as a cost basis because it's been happening all this time already. So it's expected to keep on going on. So our fees, all this stuff that we don't get and make because Amazon's charging, won't change much on that side of things. Before I get into the bad things, let me just hop into a potential good thing right now for us. So for those of us that sell on Amazon FBA, I don't do it anymore, but for those of you guys that still do, Amazon's actually working in a big way on automating as much stuff as they can. So potentially, guys, for those of you that do Amazon FBA, all this automation, all these new robots actually might be able to cut your Amazon FBA fees down a little bit. I don't know if Amazon's going to do that. They haven't announced that they'd do as much, but they are automating a whole lot of stuff, like a whole lot of stuff. It's crazy the numbers that they are putting out already for automation and what they are planning on doing. So potentially that actually could mean that they are going to cut FBA fees. Again, I don't know if they will do that, but their robots that they're doing, they already have a ton that help pick, pack, and ship orders, but now they're doing more and more stuff. It's crazy. So that might actually help you guys in the long run, but short run, the government's going after Amazon for being a monopoly. I think we all can accept it does have some monopolistic tendencies, some monopolistic. It does control a whole lot of the online market. So yeah, you do have some issues there. I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon actually is a monopoly in some of the like individual sectors that they sell stuff in. So for instance, diapers. Back in the day, guys, Amazon actually reached out to this guy who had a diaper site. I think it was diapers.com. I don't remember for sure. But they actually were like, hey, we'd like to buy you out. And the guy was like, no. And then Amazon's like, well, we'll get you one way or another, I guess. So they actually cut all the prices of diapers on Amazon to the point that that other guy basically went out of business, and now they own a huge portion of the diaper industry. That is something that you could see monopolies do. That's something, it's a weapon that monopolies can easily wield, and Amazon's not going getting after, the government's not getting after, Amazon for that issue, which they definitely could have a case there. I don't really think Amazon controls that much of the diaper industry. Don't know that off the top of my head, but I would suspect you see a whole lot of like just grocery stores owning it. Not that the government wouldn't have too much of a case, but we do see Amazon. It's a very powerful company. So the government decided, you know what? Here's our case against them. And their case against Amazon, part of it is Amazon requires sellers for selling new items. They're like, hey, if you're selling it for this price on your website, you have to sell it for the same price on Amazon, because we don't want to have a big competition with your actual site. It's logical. I think that's quite fair. A lot of sellers that have stuff on their own website then have coupon codes available to customers. Sometimes they even have it like as soon as you open it up, be like, hey, here's 20% off, because Amazon, at the end of the day, you probably still end up making more money on your own site, even with the 20% discount, than what you do on Amazon, just because Amazon has all the fees. But at the end of the day, it's like people have figured the workarounds. Amazon's evidently mostly fine with it. They haven't murdered anyone for it just yet, as far as I know. But it's like, okay, end of the day, there's a workaround that doesn't hurt anyone, and then you have Amazon's rule, which just makes it so the Amazon customer doesn't get murdered. And the reasons for the monopoly rulings and rules by the federal government of the United States, at least allegedly, are to help the customer, and that seems like it's helping the customer already. So why would you go after them for that? Because they say monopolies only hurt the customer, and facts say that isn't necessarily the case. Whatever. Government doesn't care about facts anyways. I mean, I think we've already established that, but let's just say all that happens. Let's say that the government wins against Amazon. Amazon will have to either break up, or they'll have to do a lot of things, all these sorts of strange things that may or may not end up happening. It might help in the long run. I strongly doubt it, but it's a lot of things that we do have to sort of be prepared for, be considering as we go along, guys. There are a lot of things that the government is going after a lot of these businesses for, and in addition to that, we have the government hiring a boatload and a ton of IRS agents and teaching them how to shoot people. That's another thing that we sort of have to be aware of as business owners. We have to be like, okay, so I've already been as good as I can be on my taxes, but now I have to worry about it more because I might get shot. Yay. That's another thing that, guys, we have to consider. That's things that, okay, I'm not cheating on my taxes, but Johnny down the street is, and because Johnny down the street is, and I think I gave him a Christmas present a couple years ago, and we're friends. Can't remember for sure, guys, if it's friends, but I think it's friends. But there was actually a recent ruling that said that the IRS, if they're investigating someone, they can actually investigate any attached bank accounts to like family. I know it was family, but I believe friends as well. Basically anyone who might have given the guy money, I guess, something along those lines. But the IRS now has a right to, they're investigating Bob, but now they can do like 2,500 other people who all touched Bob at some point. And of course, it's not actually that wide ranging, but you guys could see it does quickly escalate quite a lot further than what it used to escalate out as. And again, we might not be cheating on our taxes. I know I'm not. And because of all that, though, Bob down the street, yeah, he went to jail, whoop-de-doo, but he was actually affiliated with, let's say, John, who is the guy that you buy, at least in my case, all your books from. And, oh, John actually made some mistakes on his taxes, so he actually has to pay all that money back. And he doesn't have the money right now, so he actually has to increase all of his prices to help cover the tax bill that he's getting. He has to increase all of his prices by 50%, let's say, because he's trying to do it as fast as he can, or else there's a whole lot of issues. So you, sourcing your books, you have to end up paying a whole lot more. Or let's say, instead of him, you have Sally over here who you buy some more stuff from, and she's like, oh no, I saw these other people get in trouble by the IRS. I'm going to raise my prices right now so I can actually hire a tax attorney or a tax specialist or a tax accountant, all these sorts of things. So I make sure that I'm bulletproof. If they go after me, I'll be safe. And because she does all that, though, her prices are raised, and then you have to pay more money for her stuff as well. And at the end of the day, when you have all these extra, basically clerical work things, you have all these bureaucrats making it so more bureaucratic people have to basically be in offices at businesses. When you have all that happen, it just makes prices go up more and more and more. It means your efficiency goes down and down and down. It's basically a big issue that basically ruins your life. And by ruins your life, no, it doesn't actually ruin your life, but it does make your life more difficult. Instead of spending a day to do all your taxes, you have to spend a week doing it. And then it'll be a month doing it. And then eventually you'll do taxes the entire year and you'll cry. So that is something, though, that we do need to be aware of, guys, is the federal government sort of just ruining our lives by all the things that they're going after, all the extra expenses that they are tacking onto our businesses as it is. Not necessarily tax increases, which people are discussing, but all the other things that do go along with all the extra rules, because you have to make sure that you're not breaking the law, or else you go and live for free in a nice padded room with a nice jacket to live in. It's great. With that said, though, guys, I know that's a very dark outlook on things. I understand that a lot of you guys might be worried about that. Yeah, it's not great, but end of the day, there's only so much that we can do besides voting out a whole lot of the psychos and trying to get non-psycho people into government. So obviously, you can't continue the status quo with who you're voting in if that has just made things worse and worse, such as all the people in California. They might need to change who they vote for, or if they don't want to state that people have to continue fleeing from. With all that said, though, guys, it's Killjoy, California, so don't expect a whole lot. But with all that said now, onto a whole different subject. So, guys, I know all that might have made you feel a little powerless. I know it was quite depressing, potentially. So I want to sort of share something that you guys have asked a lot about. I want to share something that might be beneficial, might give you guys a feeling that you might be able to do something that will make you a little bit safer. So with that said, all of that depressing news set aside, take a breath. Okay, we're good now. So with that said, though, guys, I've heard a lot of you guys talking about gold and silver because I've talked about it on the channel, so you guys have asked a lot of questions. One of the questions that I haven't heard asked that I might actually make a video on because it's just a helpful thing, but I'm tacking it onto this video just for the sake of let's make it less depressing, is, so guys, if you want to buy silver, gold, or silver, there are a lot of things that you guys can do. So I actually have a company that I have bought gold and silver from, and they are... I'm going to link to them actually in the description. It's called Defy the Grid. I think it's a really cool company. They're just a small coin shop that does some online stuff. I think they're from Utah. Yeah, they're from Utah. And pretty good company, Defy the Grid. I like them. You guys can check out their website, or you guys can use the affiliate link down below. That does help me a smidgen if you guys buy gold backs. I don't know if it helps for other things, but it doesn't really matter. But that's one option that you guys can do, but that only gets you so far. So bear with me, guys. Here is like a hack that I wish I knew before I started. Because, guys, back when I started, I bought several tubes of coins. Those were actually 99.9% pure coins of silver. These right here are only 40%. I have the other ones elsewhere. They may or may not be buried in a whole summer. But that particular silver that I bought initially, guys, I bought it just out of my, I believe it was either my PayPal or my Visa. I don't remember for sure. But I bought it just like that because I was like, okay, here are the options of how you could pay. You could do it with the Visa, PayPal. You could do it with Bitcoin. Well, I'm not ever doing that. Or you could do it with something called an e-check or a wire, bank wire. And I'm like, well, I know what this one is. Not doing that one, and I have no idea what this other one is. So my first groups of silver that I bought, the first stacks of coins that I bought, were actually all done through the Visa option, which I know you guys might be thinking, oh, okay, did a Visa. Whoop-de-doo. Well, guys, a lot of the coin shops that you're dealing with online, so if you guys are doing this in person, totally different thing, we'll get into that in a little bit, but most of the coin shops online, guys, they actually charge you more money to buy stuff with your Visa, with your PayPal, all this sort of stuff, because those companies are actually losing potentially like 4% on each transaction, because that's what these cards and whatnot charge that particular company. So they will actually charge you a little bit more so they don't lose their shirt. That's fine. However, guys, the Bitcoin thing, that actually ends up being a little bit less than what the Visa is. Sometimes it's a good deal. For me, I'm not about to do that. Not interested whatsoever. But there's the third option, guys. So you have bank wires. Usually a lot of these online dealers will actually have it so you have to hit a certain like margin to get any bank wire things that they'll actually transact with. So like $10,000 plus. And I'm like, well, I'm not buying that much. I'm not that rich just yet to buy that much. But there's another option, guys. So the e-check, this is what I'm talking about right here. Here's the thing that you guys can do to save a boatload of money. Generally, for what I've seen, the e-check option is the cheapest option next to the bank wire. Those are same margin usually for what they charge. It's usually the best price you can get on the websites. They also have volume discounts for a lot of these things, so you might pay $25 for a coin, or if you buy 30 of them, you might get it for $24. Might not sound like a ton, but it does add up, definitely. You guys want to make sure that if you are buying, and for that, guys, that was just talking silver. If you guys are buying gold, obviously it's going to be more than $25, but if you guys are buying gold or silver, the volume helps, but doing the e-check definitely helps a ton as well. So guys, a lot of our banks actually have like an e-check platform that they do business with. So for my bank, I'm not going to share which one, but my bank in particular, they have a particular one. I had to hop on their website. I had to Google it, had to be sure. I checked like 3 different ways to make sure that I was going to the right e-check platform. A lot of these e-check platforms will actually work with several different banks, but I just want to be sure it was okay. And if you guys want to be extra sure, you can actually go into your own bank branch, and you guys can actually ask them directly, be like, hey, so I want to do e-checks, is this company the right one? That's what I would recommend you guys do. Make sure that you are not doing anything with a fake company. With that said though, guys, what in the world is an e-check? So guys, we all work with paper checks. An e-check is similar concept, except it's on the internet, and you don't have to try to do your signature every single time. You don't have to work on 535 cents. Oh, I ran out of space. You don't have to deal with that also. It's really nice. Basically, you wait until you have everything done, you do the e-check, and it just automatically gets withdrawn from your attached account. It's incredibly nice, incredibly efficient. And the reason why companies do give you discounts for that, or potentially just give you the stated price for that, is because they are not being charged an arm and a leg for that as they do for the cards. So guys, I would highly recommend you guys use e-checks when you're doing that, buying any gold or silver or anything else, honestly guys, online. If you're being charged more for visas, the e-checks is like the best thing ever. I mean, my family, we've actually used e-checks a lot now since I discovered it, and it's like, wow, we've saved a lot of money because of all the money that you are not spending due to all the fees for doing visas and all that sort of stuff. It's incredible how much money we've saved, so highly recommend getting into that. However, guys, if you aren't ready to buy silver just yet, but you know that you will be, I would recommend you start the e-check thing now, because I want to say we paid like $40 or something like that for a boatload of them. But if you guys start now on that, you actually need to wait a little bit for the e-check clearing thing to like connect with your bank, make sure everything's kosher, If you want to buy silver right now, you won't be able to if you want to do the e-checks, which is a bit of a bummer. But again, guys, for the amount of money that you can save by doing e-checks, best thing ever. I honestly wish that I did it back in the day. This is legitimately not like a sponsored thing. This is actually like an experience thing that I've actually done. Again, cannot recommend it highly enough that you guys use e-checks. With all that said though, guys, consider yourself warned on the e-check side of things. However, I want to make you guys also aware. So there are a lot of people selling gold and silver online. There are a lot of people calling you being like, oh, There's a lot of people putting stuff in the newspaper. Make sure that it's people that you guys can actually trust. I don't care who it is. I don't care if your great aunt Matilda told you that this company was great. If she has not actually purchased stuff from it and has not actually like done stuff with this company, maybe great aunt Matilda doesn't actually know what's going on. Make sure it's something that you have actually heard good things about, companies that you have actually know people personally who have done business with them and have actually had good experiences. And a lot of these companies, guys, they will either be scams, they'll sell you fake gold or silver, or they'll give you a good discount and then they'll call you every single month. It's like, oh, we have another great deal, and the other great deals are usually not great deals. So they bring you in with their loss leader on the front side of things, and then after that they're trying to sell you a whole bunch of scams, basically. That's something that you can have, or you get your name put on a list for a whole lot of scammers. Not good. I recommend doing business with trustworthy businesses. So for me, guys, Defy the Grid, I trust that company completely. Another company that I buy from that I trust completely is SD Bullion. Another one that I've bought from quite a few times, trust completely. And guys, amazing prices. Like these three that I just listed off are good prices. Sorry. The third one is Monument Metals, sorry. So these three companies, Defy the Grid, SD Bullion, Monument Metals, those ones generally have the best prices across the board for me. I am all sorts of pleased with those. Very trustworthy businesses. Love them a whole lot. Of course, do your own due diligence to figure out which ones work best for you, but those are my favorite three. I've also done business with Bullion Exchanges. Really like that company. No real complaints. Sometimes their prices aren't amazing, but their ballpark, it's not too terribly off of what the other ones are. I've also done stuff with Liberty Coin and Currency. They do stuff on eBay, so it's one way to spend your eBay money if you want. And there's been a couple other ones beside that. Some people use something called AppMax, very large company. I have not personally purchased from them. I've heard a lot of horror stories of them not being the best people out there, but they are definitely an honest company. They've been around. They do tons of business, so they don't have any issues. Some people just are a little picky. Personally, for me, I don't like their pricing. Their pricing's a little higher than everyone else, so I'm like, I'm good. I'll keep buying from the people I really like. And if nothing else, you guys have your local coin shops. Of course, some of us don't have a local coin shop. For me, I actually had to drive, I think it was 40 miles from where I live to go to the coin shop that I actually now would consider my coin shop, because they are absolutely amazing, and I really want to buy some more stuff from them soon because they are such a good business. But for some of us guys, we have to drive 40 miles plus to find a good coin shop. Sometimes we have one just down the street that is not necessarily the most moral. So that is something that we have to keep in mind when we are doing stuff with local ones. I recommend checking out all the reviews on Google. Personally, for me, I saw that you can have, like, let's say here is average for a coin shop. Here is just a terrible corrupt one. Here's an amazing one. I find that the average coin shop, if you're just a little bit above average, you still have a whole lot of just average reviews. So I'm talking like 3-star reviews, like average for reviews. And they can still be like an above par coin shop, but people are just very angry with coin shop stuff. Like they can just be jerks about it. So be a little aware when you're doing your looking up on Google reviews to be like, oh, this one only has 3 stars. It can't be trustworthy. But actually look at the reviews. Sometimes it's just people being jerks because they brought in, let's say, this coin right here, but it wasn't actually 40% silver. It actually is like one of the modern ones that's worth nothing. They're like, this company said it wasn't worth anything. It's like, that's because it really isn't worth anything, sir. Calm down. So that is something you will see a lot of the times with these reviews. So be sure to actually look at the reviews. Don't just look at the star rating. Make sure you know why people are complaining. In addition to that, the right coin shops, guys, I'm talking the ones that are like 4 stars plus. Those are the ones that you can bring in stuff like this and be like, hey, I don't know exactly what this thing's worth. I don't know if it's worth anything. Can you look at it? And they'll look at it and be like, oh, yeah, it's worth this much. Like, there are definitely some very honest coin shops out there that are local ones that you guys can actually go to and do business with. Sorry. And then there are other ones that are like, no, go down my store. I have other business to do. And sometimes, guys, you will go to one that's actually really good business, but they will be really busy. Like, there's 100 other people in there. They won't always be able to look at all your stuff, but sometimes they will. Sometimes they won't. But it basically depends on how nice they are to you. I recommend finding a coin shop that's actually nice to you, or if they are mean, make sure they're giving you a really, really good deal. However, good deals are not everything. If someone's trying to sell you a gold coin for $15, it's a scam. If it's 1 ounce and it's $15, that is an absolute scam. No one sells silver for half its price. So keep that in mind when you guys are buying. Don't underpay too much. Try to find a coin shop, guys, that actually will like check their metals. So there are a lot of things that you guys can actually do to have metals checked. A lot of these coin shops, like the actual bigger ones, actually have it so the government has to come in and like make sure like their scales are kosher and that sort of stuff. So be sure to like find ones that aren't the back of the Walmart alley where this guy's like, hey kid, want to buy some coins? That's probably a scam. In addition to that, guys, for me personally, I don't like, they call it slabbed coins. I don't really like those. They charge an arm and a leg premium for them. And at the end of the day, for me personally, I'm more interested in paying the actual spot price for the coins and whatnot that I'm buying, the coins, bars, rounds. I like paying closer to spot price. So the slabbed things, I do understand that they have their place. However, there's a lot of people that are selling these, and it's like, listen, pal, I know that it has a value because of that. However, that's not the value that I personally put this thing at. I know that it's an extra $50 for you to do for that. That coin is not worth an additional $50 to me. So you guys do have to be aware of that. For me personally, I am trying to get as many things as close to silver spot price and gold spot price as I can. The reason for that is just because of my economic perspective on the research that I have personally done. I would rather have my gold and silver at spot, so when I'm selling them, I will be able to make a little bit more money. And guys, that is because, I have another chart for you, bear with me. That is because, based on my own research, again, guys, do your own research, your own due diligence. None of the stuff in this entire video has been financial advice. Do your own thing. But according to my own research, so right here is the housing market. It's great. And no, this is not necessarily our housing market. Just bear with me. So this is housing market. Here, so I'm going to do dotted line. This is gold and silver. Actually, no, this dotted line is just gold. So let's say this is gold right here, and then boop, ba-doop, 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 ba-doo. That potentially is the gold market. And then this dotted line, little circles, is the silver market. And obviously silver is not the same price as gold, but bear with me as I do this. So this one, let's say, is the silver market. And as you guys can see here, based on this chart, again, this is just based on my own research, what I am personally investing for, all that sort of stuff. But we could see that there is a definite distinction between gold and silver and housing. Gold and silver, they both go down when the housing's hitting its peak, which is very interesting. However, when housing, and let's say housing and the stock market, because those two are similar. However, housing normally hits its bottom after the stock market has hit its bottom. So bear with me though. We see that when this hits its top and starts rolling over, gold and silver start going up. And we also see that gold stopped here, but silver kept on rising. However, silver kept on rising after gold did its thing. So historically, what we have seen, guys, is housing, stocks, all that sort of stuff rolls over. Gold and silver actually roll over as everything else does a little bit. So you see those two dips. Gold normally hits its bottom a little bit earlier. Silver hits its bottom a little bit later. And then gold leads silver. However, we also see the inverse correlation between housing, stocks, and gold and silver. So the inverse correlation is very strong in the crash. As everything crashes, these two go up. And as this goes up to its top, these two are hitting its bottoms. So that is something definitely to keep in mind, guys. Of course, do your own research, your own due diligence, all that sort of stuff. But that is something that I've personally seen in my research. That's something I've heard from several experts. And that's sort of the investing thesis that I'm going off of. And based on that, I've also listened to some interviews with some different coin shops. I've talked to my own coin shops, and they have, a lot of the ones that I've talked to and heard from, they all say that when you have gold and silver taking off in a big, big way, so we're talking like back in the 2008 crisis, all that sort of stuff. I can't remember the exact price that it got up to, but it got over $40, I think, somewhere around there. I can't remember for sure, but that's what silver got to. And silver started out quite a bit below that. I can't remember for sure what silver was in the early 2000s. Sorry, guys. I should have done this, but it wasn't on my main sticky. It was something I thought about tacking on the end. But we saw silver take off in a huge, huge way. And guys, all these coin shop people have said, yeah, when silver went from, let's say, $2 to $40, and no, it wasn't $2 at the time, I don't believe, but when it goes at that price, your silver coin that you bought not at $2, but you bought it at $3 because it was a special one in the plastic slab. When it goes up to $40, your silver coin that you paid an extra dollar for, so 50% more for, it's only worth $40. Or potentially they'll pay you $41 for. So yeah, congratulations, you kept your $1. However, you paid 50% more for that. You could have bought an extra half ounce of silver for that, which means when it goes to $40, instead of being like, oh, I sold it for $41, if you had an ounce and a half, it actually would have been 50% more than that. So guys, that is something that you do have to consider when you're doing your purchases. For me, that's personally what I am investing in the low premium gold and silver, is just because, wow, the investment thesis for me, I mean, I would rather have more ounces than I would like to have quality ounces. However, there are some big things that go along with that. For the entire collectible market for gold and silver, the collectibles generally, as things go down, they will generally maintain a higher price than obviously the just cheap trash that I'm investing in, you know. The reason for that, guys, is there is a collectible value to these things. There's only 100 left of this particular coin in the world. As such, it's always going to be worth a little bit more than what spot price will be. So that is something to keep in mind, guys. Of course, none of this is investment advice. Do your own thing, but there are quite a lot of investing gold and silver people investing that are not at all interested in slabbed coins because of that whole issue. They don't want to have less coins. They would rather have more coins that are silver as opposed to just an 1/8 ounce. They want to have 100 ounces, you know, that sort of thing. Remember earlier on in this channel, guys, I actually shared a coin that I sold on eBay. I don't remember what I paid for it. Was it $120? But I paid $120 for a Morgan silver dollar. So excuse me, guys. Oops. There we go. Here's a Morgan silver dollar right here, guys. It's got some toning. Mine had some toning, and it ended up selling for $180. I could go to the coin store today, and I could get this for about $30, I'd say. Maybe a little bit over $30, maybe $35. Depends. I don't remember for sure. I haven't asked for sure, but instead of $120, I could have bought... instead of $120 for one, I could have bought quite a few. Or the guy that bought this basically exact coin for $180, he could have bought quite a few more. So guys, that is something to keep in mind when you guys are doing your purchases of gold and silver, is what do you really want to do with yours? Are you trying to buy cool collectibles, or are you trying to buy something that is your investment thesis, the thing that you want to have cover you in your retirement, in your economic crash, all that sort of stuff? It's something that you guys have to mull over. There are quite a few good channels that you guys can learn a lot of stuff about on YouTube. Channels that I would personally recommend that I actually subscribe to are Silver Dragons. I know it sounds like a corny name, but there's not a lot of corny. Sorry, there are a lot of corny names out there for a lot of things. So Silver Dragons, though, good, very good channel actually. The guy that does it actually lives in Gresham, where I live, so I like him. His name's also Caleb, like mine. So he's obviously a really good guy. A Caleb from Gresham, what else could you want? Another guy, though, that I would highly recommend is Yankee Stacking. Very good channel, very friendly guy. He actually does a lot of interviews with a guy called Tim at a coin store. Those interviews are very informative on what you guys can expect. There are quite a few other channels that I follow. 2 is 1 is one that I really like. So the number 2 and then IS1. So 2 is 1. That goes off the entire saying of 2 is 1, 1 is none. And that basically means that, hey, instead of just having 1 gallon of water, you should have 2 gallons of water, because potentially your gallon of water, it might get a leak, it might get contaminated. So if you have 2 gallons of water, 1 goes bad, you still have 1, that sort of thing. That's sort of what that one plays on with its name. That one's sort of more of a prepper one, but he still has some very good stuff. In fact, a lot of gold and silver people will be preppers most of the time, you guys will see. But that is something that you will see a lot, because these people are doing a whole lot of research. They are learning a whole lot of stuff, and when you learn enough stuff, you're like, that's not what I was always taught, and that's a whole lot worse than what I was always taught. They taught me that this thing that happened was not terrible, but in reality it was really, really terrible. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of these people become preppers, is they started out normal, got into gold and silver, and then they were like, oh, I've been lied to my entire life. Pooh, I'm going to hide in box now. That is sort of something that you will see a lot. It's a lot of prepper stuff. But with that said, though, guys, there are a lot of great channels on YouTube that you guys can check out for that. I would, again, personally recommend checking out the Silver Dragons one, because his name's Caleb and he's awesome. I haven't actually met him, but... And then the Yankee Stacking. Those are my 2 favorites, though, and they would be the more non-crazy for most of you guys. If you guys do want a little bit of potential crazy, there's actually one called ITM Trading. So ITM. So let's see. Indigo. I should have thought of this better. Indigo... Tooting pandas, I don't know. And then M is mandolin. I don't know. I'm not very good at this, guys. Sorry. But ITM Trading. They actually have a lady on it who I call her crazy, but she's not too crazy, but she is quite the prepper. So when I'm telling people about stuff that she said, I'm like, hey, so the crazy lady who has some good data, but is a little bit crazy because of her prepperness. She actually said this and this and this. She has some very good data. She is very, very data dependent. However, she goes a little over what most people would expect for the whole prepper side of things. Of course, depending on your worldview, she's doing everything right, but a lot of people don't agree with the whole prepper mentality. They think it's all a lie and all is terrible, da-da-da-da-da. But she does have some very good data as well, if you guys are willing to deal with some crazy. With all that said and done, though, guys, back to the entire thing with the economy. Things are starting to roll over. Government agencies are starting to admit it, slowly but surely. So, you know it's bad when the government has to finally admit that they were wrong or lied to you. So, but with all that said and done, though, guys, those are just the updates that I'm seeing. That's a lot of the data that I'm seeing. Those charts that I went over, you guys can actually look up a lot of those charts yourself. I would highly recommend you guys look up these charts. So the chart on the federal government's spending their the Federal Reserve Bank, they're spending their balance sheet, all that sort of stuff, that is available on the FRED website, which is Federal Reserve Education Department. I don't remember for sure. You can also look at the U.S. Treasury and find out their stuff. Look up the U.S. debt clock. Honestly, guys, just check that out and be like, oh, wow, we are spending a lot of money. I don't even make that much in a day. They just spent that much in a minute. Wow. I don't make that much in a lifetime, actually. Wow. Great job. With that said, though, guys, I recommend checking out all these things. Do your own due diligence. Look up all the stuff that I shared, because it's a lot worse, potentially, than what I'm saying. There are a lot of contrary opinions as well from all the great people on TV who are never, ever, ever wrong. They have never lied to us on TV. So, of course, you guys can balance that out with all the TV people, the actual facts that I went over, and all the ponies and unicorns that they talk about. But end of the day, it's up to you guys to do what you want. Again, none of the stuff that I went over is financial advice. Do your own thing. But with all that said and done, though, thank you for watching. Again, there's the video at the top that I recommend you guys check out that goes over a lot of the data and a little bit of a crash course. It was nice and short of a video, about 20 minutes-ish. So again, check that one out. If you guys like this video, be sure to hit the like and hit the subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.